Today's video is a response to Elliot Sang's recent video titled The Tragedy of Usha Vance. In case you are unfamiliar with this YouTube creator, as I kinda was, but this one about Usha caught my attention. He stands for progressive values, though it may be accurate to group him in with the far left. Anyhow, the dude straight up starts the video saying this is not a sympathy video for Usha Vance, JD's Vance's wife.
This is not a apology video on Usha Vance's behalf. This is not going to be apologia for her. This is not going to be me declaring my sympathies.
I found his video appalling not only because of its misogyny, but the implication that her husband is cheating on her with Erica Kirk, the widow of Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk.
There is a tragedy going on here.
The video takeaway is that Usha Vance, a daughter of immigrants and a lawyer who graduated from Yale, the #1 law school with a highly successful career, now has to make sacrifices for JD Vance, thereby putting her career on pause. That explains his video title, but is it really a tragedy or simply the cost of marrying a political figure? If marrying and supporting him was her choice, then it is not a tragedy. Elliot humiliates her instead of acknowledging that it's the cost of supporting someone, making changes, and adapting. When I think of tragedies, I think of major disasters, death, or profound loss. Applying it to Usha's chosen lifestyle, even one involving an indefinite hold on her career, can feel like an over-the-top, sensationalist label designed to provoke a reaction rather than provide thoughtful commentary. She made a choice that felt right for her, committed fully to her husband and children. In a colloquial sense, a life is not a tragedy if the choice results in mutual support and personal happiness. Only Usha can tell us how she really feels. Just recently, Lily Allen wrote and recorded her latest album, West End Girl, in a short period of 10 days. The album is about her divorce from David Harbour and the pain that comes with it. But even that wouldn't be a tragedy because Allen is still here with us, doing her best to move forward. She's not Ophelia who ends up drowning in water, nor is she the modern tragedy Amy Winehouse. It's why Elliot's rhetoric relies on this unhappy marriage between the Vances to support his claim of a tragedy.
She did not necessarily see herself 10 or 20 years ago being the second lady of the United States under a fascist conservative regime.
Marriage comes with many sacrifices and involves the support for one another. In photos, the Vances look happy. Mrs. Vance especially appears extremely proud of her husband's own accomplishments. You know what? I know in my heart that I would be beaming from ear to ear like an idiot if my loved one achieved a triumph. Usha was well aware what her husband's possible nomination for vice president would mean for her, a change she wasn't enthusiastic about, a valid reaction given the intense public scrutiny that comes with the role. JD Vance understands the sacrifice his wife is making. Let's be real, I'm sure he is accommodating her by continuing to provide to her needs and being a lovely husband and father to his kids. At the same time, Mrs. Vance understands that she needs to support her husband and fulfill her role as second lady. In other words, her husband depends on her, not just her depending on him. Also, why is it when a man sacrifices his career to support his wife, it's often framed as modern, supportive, and progressive? When a woman does the same, it can be framed as a loss of potential, a tragedy, or a regression into outdated gender roles. It's clear that Elliot is weaponizing Usha's new journey as the second lady in order for him to contrast her high achievement and immigrant background with her husband's anti-immigrant policies and conservative views on women for his narrative that she is compromising and fulfilling a so-called tragedy. This cynical take on Usha Vance's life choices is a common talking point in progressive media. For instance, here's a brief example from Salon with the host
Amanda Marcotte
and her guest Scotchy Cole.
I'm not here to make apologies for Usha Vance. When they started their marriage, she was this high-powered attorney. He's managed to find a way to get her out of her job and make her do events where she talks about kids reading all day.
I don't feel sorry for her. You can't say one or the other, that either she was capable of this amazing career because she's so educated and so self-possessed, and she's this shrinking violet that this 5'8" guy was able to like wrangle out of her job and trick her into this life of subservience for the government. Like, I just don't buy it. She's smart.
It's the mocking of reading to children for me. There are teachers who do that for a living, and also drag queens who participate in events where they read books to children. What does that make them? The problem here is that they are letting politics drive them into the direction of us versus them, instead of nuances, which would help them to see that they're part of the problem. Cole rightfully puts that Usha is in full control of her life, not a victim. That her life choices are knowing and intentional rather than miscalculations. Her statement debunks Elliot's premise that Usha was a passive victim of a conservative pipeline or neoliberal re-education, when his entire argument hinges on her lack of political consciousness and being led down a specific path.
But this path of being depoliticized, of not having a political education, of not being outwardly progressive, and of thinking of moving up the ladder and having career success in a stable PMC, professional managerial class life, has put her on this path where now ultimately she is in what appears to be a really miserable position.
Elliot's advice for immigrants and their children is to engage with progressive politics and to prioritize their community struggle over the palatable vision of American life, which he views as a trap.
Teaching your kids to become the boot on the neck you're running from is really heavy.
But let's address Elliot's claim that this is all a big picture problem. He tries to universalize Usha Vance's story, saying it's an affliction faced by immigrants' families who want a better life but end up depoliticizing their children. His advice is for immigrants to prioritize their community struggle over the palatable vision of American life, over individual achievement and a stable career. But whose big picture is he talking about? Elliot's big picture is a narrow, ideological one that dictates what a proper immigrant child should think and act like. It's based on his opinion of what community connection should entail. Specifically, a progressive, politically active life focused on sympathizing with the oppressed. The problem with this is that it's prescriptive, not descriptive. It completely ignores the fact that the actual big picture of the immigrant experience is incredibly diverse. It includes people who build amazing careers and raise families that go on to have their own diverse political beliefs. It's about freedom, not a new set of political rules. A truly comprehensive big picture would acknowledge that Usha Vance's path, choosing a career, family, and a political alignment that works for her and her husband, is also part of the American story. My big picture respects that diversity and the freedom to define success on one's own terms without being labeled a tragedy or the boot on the neck of one's own people.
I'm sure you've heard that Usha and JD Vance are not doing great right now. A lot of this is rumors, of course. This isn't stuff that people are declaring on their Twitter pages necessarily. And a lot of this stuff is like, let's say, not the heaviest of scrutiny, right? We're kind of making assumptions.
While Elliot uses disclaimers that the information is rumors, assumptions, and that the evidence is not indisputable, he remains focused squarely on the perception of sus behavior.
It just looks kind of sus. Everything Erica Kirk has been doing in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death has looked pretty sus. When they do anything sus, you're immediately inclined to think, yeah, they're definitely doing the worst possible thing.
Elliot's repeated suggestions of sus behavior are designed to lead the audience to a negative conclusion. Let's start with the Halloween.
Usha Vance did not dress up for Halloween. JD Vance dressed up as the meme of him with the hair. You know it. You hate it. His kid's also dressed up. And people are asking questions.
People are asking questions. No, actually, people ask the stupidest questions. Questions in bad faith. I, for one, am actually surprised that JD Vance and his kids are dressed up for Halloween. Some Christians don't like to celebrate Halloween. I know that Vance and his kids are Catholic. Usha is a Hindu, so that's the logical explanation for why she doesn't have a costume. I'm not saying all Hindus don't celebrate Halloween, but some Hindus don't. I find it preposterous that her not dressing up is a sign that something is going on with her relationship with Vance. Everyone has the right not to celebrate Halloween. It's really not that deep.
Why did Usha not dress up? Well, this is especially under scrutiny because there have been recent headlines about JD Vance and his relationship with the recently widowed Erica Kirk.
He shows us this clip from a Turning Point USA event where Erica Kirk is on stage, about to bring in the next guest, JD Vance, after playing conspiracy theorists.
I don't think it's controversial at this point to say that she doesn't seem like she's sincere at all in her emotions. I don't want to be body language doctor guy. I know some people don't necessarily produce a lot of tears. But like if you look at the facial expressions, the like pained pause pausing. It just seems like a person who like is auditioning for the high school play.
Do it for Charlie. Do it for Charlie.
Do it.
And I am tremendously blessed and honored tonight to be able to introduce to you a very, very dear friend and his wife.
And her delivery doesn't go well, of course, with her making headlines.
They are incredible. No one will ever replace my husband. No. But I do see some similarities of my husband in JD and Vice President JD Vance. I do. And that's why I'm so blessed to be able to introduce him tonight.
Now, did you catch that? Erica looked a bit flustered. She squinted her eyes, averted her gaze, some obvious sign that she said something off. But the words had already left her mouth. Let's rewind that again, but slower for you to see it.
But I do see some similarities of my husband.
That was just a slip of the tongue. If it were Kamala Harris, our ex-vice president, who made a similar statement, you bet that the left would be adamantly defending her, but that was just the beginning. What really sold it and got Erica under fire was her hug to JD, which had people talking about the way it looked.
Did we miss this? Here we go. Ugh.
There are people attacking Erica, people who don't believe her when she is the victim, a wife and mother who lost her husband. These attacks are unwarranted. The catalyst, because she's trying to think positively, accepting God's will, and also trying to be strong, she looks crazy. That's how the average person saw Jesus. They're saying that she's not genuine, that she's up to something, or, quote, is auditioning for the high school play and is like trying to convey emotion in their audition scene, like in Elliot's video. When she gave JD Vance that hug, it showed that Erica really admired Vance. If two guys were hugging like that, it's gay. If it was a guy and a girl, they are sleeping together. It's ridiculous, don't you think? All that to say is that there's nothing going on between Erica and Vance. This public scrutiny towards Erica and Usha is not exclusive to conservatives, and Elliot is not the only left-leaning person using his platform to scrutinize and meddle in the lives of a grieving widow and a respectable wife. No. The left, who are supposed to be for equality, are spinning this nasty narrative that there's no way that JD Vance would be with Usha, the brown woman, and pitting her against Erica, the white blonde woman. It's a low blow, but back to Elliot.
Look, I'm not going to say that this is like red-handed, you guys are cheating, I caught you, indisputable evidence.
Much later.
No, it would not shock me if Erica Kirk, who just compared JD Vance to her dead husband and said, you know, nobody can replace him, but he shares a lot of the same values, and then held him and petted his hair. No, it would not shock me entirely if Erica Kirk ended up being JD Vance's second wife. She fits the bill more for this MAGA agenda. She fits the bill more for this fascist agenda. That's not nothing.
Elliot transitions to calling JD Vance a snake after presuming that JD might be disillusioned or uncomfortable in his marriage. That's right, he questions the authenticity of JD's marriage. He brings up JD's sketchy political behavior, rumors of tension between the spouses, and his shift to the far right.
He can be the hillbilly elegy guy in 2016 who talks about, you know, the perils of the rise of Trump, all the while lying about his savoir-faire in Appalachia as a young man in a poor background. It's not as if he hasn't proven that he lies about this shit. It's not as if he hasn't proven to be a snake and a careerist and an opportunist over the past 8-9 years as he's risen to this position.
Elliot attributes JD flip-flopping in politics just as his initial never Trump stance.
I'm a never Trump guy.
And atheist background to his marriage, viewing them as definite signs of infidelity. For context, JD was outspokenly against Donald Trump, even likening him to Adolf Hitler in a DM. He was always a firm believer of moral clarity, which cannot be said about Trump, a moral disaster in JD's own words, not mine. JD did admit to being wrong about Trump, saying the following message.
I was wrong, first of all, because I believed some of the media stories that turned out to be dishonest fabrications of his record.
JD blames the media or shifts responsibility to them, depending on your perspective. His rethinking of his positioning shows that JD pushed aside moral clarity for fighting against a common enemy. Still, it doesn't address the elephant in the room. He only began to embrace Trump during his campaign for Senate. Both he and his primary opponent, Josh Mandel, actively sought Donald Trump's support and endorsement. This exposes a common pattern and at least explains how, in politics, loyalty disregards moral clarity in exchange of a metric for success. Elliot shares a video of someone who claims to have sightings of JD Vance and Usha together in a nice hotel, looking miserable and arguing with the staffs and to each other. Let's hear it.
We've been hearing rumors for a while about JD and Usha not exactly doing great. Just as a reference, a while ago, Usha Vance was rumored to have snapped at JD Vance in public. Divorce rumors kept piling up. This is actually from, it's Suzanne Lambert on Instagram.
I'm feeling messy, but apparently so are JD Vance and Usha. Their marriage is in trouble. So they were fighting at dinner. Usha said, this is what our life should actually be like. And he, to no surprise to anyone, was just like a little meager beaver, like me, I know. Which confirms
what married couple doesn't fight with each other? I think arguments now and then are normal and completely healthy. We know Kamala fights with her husband Doug, especially with all that stress from running for president. It's also stressful for the Vances, with them being the center of attention, where peace and quiet is out of the question.
Boo! 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 Why don't you go someplace else? Boo! Boo!
If Elliot doesn't have you convinced that they're in a disastrous marriage, he brings to attention, quote, the main reason why people are extra sauce on JD Vance, the MAGA coalition, which he calls a very white supremacist base. Elliot has the audacity to infer that for Vance to appeal to these white Christian nationalists, he needs to replace his wife, because his wife, Usha, doesn't identify as a Christian, because she's a brown woman, and because Vance has shown to be someone who will throw his morals away for support. The most shameless of people believe Vance will also throw out their marriage in order to better represent white nationalist ideals of America. That's divorced from reality. Vance deeply loves his wife. He has defended her from, quote, white supremacy attacks or white Christian nationalists who deem his wife's race and religion a conflict of interest. Vance sat down for a one-on-one with Jonathan Carroll on the ABC News program this week, where he was questioned about these attacks.
You faced some really nasty stuff. I saw this thing that Nick Fuentes, of course, he's an avowed white supremacist. He said, what kind of a man marries somebody named Usha? Clearly he doesn't value his racial identity, his heritage. I mean, this is racist garbage.
Yes, it is.
But this is also a guy that dined with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago during this campaign.
Well, and that Donald Trump doesn't know anything about and frankly doesn't care for. But yeah, look, my attitude to these people attacking my wife is she's beautiful, she's smart. What kind of man marries Usha? A very smart man, and a very lucky man, importantly. And my views, look, if these guys want to attack me or attack my views, my policy views, my personality, come after me. But don't attack my wife. She's out of your league.
Trump still hasn't given a full-throated denouncement of this guy who is white supremacist.
The thing I like about Donald Trump, John, is that he actually will talk to anybody, but just because you talk to somebody doesn't mean you endorse their views. And look, I mean, Donald Trump spent a lot of quality time with my wife. Every time he sees her, he gives her a hug, tells her she's beautiful, and jokes around with her a little bit. I'm not at all worried about Donald Trump. I'm worried sometimes about these ridiculous attacks. But again, this is what you sign up for when you come into politics. I wish people would keep it focused on me, but whatever. They're going to say what they're going to say. My wife's tough enough to handle it, and that's a good thing.
Vance is not going to drop his wife over political gain. He isn't, and not for these white Christian nationalists. Especially because he has this firm belief that a married couple should not divorce since this is not good for their children. He's pro-family and values tradition. He's a happily married man who chose the person he wanted to marry, as one should, regardless of race, gender, and religious practices. It's especially why, for many interfaith couples, their marriage is seen as empowering because it can serve as a precedent, making it seem possible to coexist respectfully with a partner of a different faith. Elliot makes it sound like Mr. Vance hates his wife, but to be accurate, he develops an argument that JD Vance is an insensitive opportunist who is willing to compromise his marriage for political gain, while also framing his public statements regarding his wife's faith as inherently disrespectful. He chose a clip of Vance and takes it as a betrayal of his wife's beliefs and identity. What do you guys think?
JD Vance gave a speech right around when he also did this suspicious hug with Erica Kirk, saying that he does want his wife to become Christian.
Fair to say that she grew up in a Hindu family, but not a particularly religious family in either direction. In fact, when I met my wife, we were both, I would consider myself an agnostic or an atheist, and that's what I think she would have considered herself as well. You know, everybody has to come to their own arrangement here. The way that we've come to our arrangement is she's my best friend. We talk to each other about this stuff. So we decided to raise our kids Christian. Our two oldest kids who go to school, they go to a Christian school. Our 8-year-old did his first communion about a year ago. That's the way that we have come to our arrangement. The only advice I can give is you just got to talk to the person that God has put you with, and you've got to make those decisions as a family unit. For us, it works out. Now, most Sundays, Usha will come with me to church. As I've told her, and I've said publicly, and I'll say now in front of 10,000 of my closest friends, do I hope eventually that she is somehow moved by the same thing that I was moved in by church? Yeah, I honestly do wish that, because I believe in the Christian gospel, and I hope eventually my wife comes to see it the same way. But if she doesn't, then God says everybody has free will, and so that doesn't cause a problem for me. That's something you work out with your friends, with your family, with the person that you love. Again, one of the most important...
For context, there was an attendee, a South Asian immigrant woman, at the same Turning Point USA town hall event where Erica gave Vance that viral hug, who asked him about his interfaith marriage, specifically how he and his Hindu wife split the religious education of their children. The attendee also asked Vance a valid question. Why do immigrants like her and Usha Vance's family have to be Christian to count as real Americans? Those who practice other faiths are made to feel like outsiders. These questions sparked conversations and created this whole narrative about white supremacy, likely leading Elliot to speak on immigrants and their children and the tragedies of assimilating into white culture.
Why did you sell us a dream? We have worked hard for it. Then how can you as a vice president stand there and say that we have too many of them now and we are going to take them out? How can you stop it and tell us we don't belong here anymore? So why are we making Christianity one of the major thing that you have to have in common to be one of you guys, to show that I love America just as much as you do? Why is that still a question? Why do I have to be a Christian?
Sounded exactly like Elliot's video, right? I don't know, but if she's the reason these conversations are popping up, Elliot did not credit her or mention her bravery. It wasn't Elliot's idea. She did clap for Vance's response to her question about interfaith relationships. That's not surprising. After all, Vance never forces Usha to be Catholic. From what I can tell, he respects her choice in her faith. Believers in monotheistic faith believe that their religion is the right religion, so it makes sense for Vance to want Usha to convert. But again, he does not force her, and that's what matters. I want to take this time to expand on Erica Kirk that Elliot hasn't covered in the video, about her latest scandal. Yes, this isn't the last of Erica's infamous hug. 1 week since her hug with JD, she did hug country singer Jason Aldean in front of his wife, no less. His wife, Brittany Aldean, was made to look upset by social media and the press. That turned out to be completely wrong. Brittany actually saw the clip on Instagram posted by The Independent and wrote under the comments section that she fought back tears and said, quote, "Shame on y'all for trying to make something more." So we have to ask the question, do we assume the worst based on what we see, or do we reserve judgment because we don't exactly know what that person is really thinking? I think this clip of JD combined with this clip of Jason gives us way more context on her state of mind. She carries a tough exterior, presenting as a happy widow to the public eye, but her actions shows differently. There holds two truths here. Erica Kirk is a naturally touchy or affectionate person, and Erica Kirk's lack of boundaries is an indication that she is disoriented. seeking comfort in a world that no longer makes sense to her. Because I do think Erica is a warm-hearted person, but she has been shown to have no restraints. For example, her long hug to Donald Trump. And that's understandable. She's grieving. Let her embrace, even if it's a long hug, even if it's her petting your hair. It's not a big deal, but people are weaponizing her grief as this freak show. Both political sides are complicit in this. Conservatives who don't usually give women the benefit of the doubt, and left-leaning individuals who pigeonhole conservatives as one and the same, as horrible people who don't deserve respect. Not to say that people are without accountability, but Erica, for instance, has done nothing wrong. You don't have to agree with her political beliefs, and I understand that the anger stems from her being associated with the far-right movement, white supremacists, or Christian nationalists, so the left has genuine concerns. In the same breath, the right has genuine concern for the extreme behavior that the left pushes onto everyone. This is America where people have diverse beliefs, and I think people should be allowed to express them. This is where Nick Fuentes comes in.
You know, Nicholas J. Fuentes, famous far-right influencer who has been talked about a lot recently. J.D. Vance's wife, Usha, was not raised Christian and is not a Christian. What kind of family is this? I love Trump, but what the fuck is this? J.D. Vance has an Indian wife and a son named Vivek. This is the guy that's gonna stand up for white people?
In a specific part in Elliot's video, he rants about how Usha isn't taking this opportunity to address Nick Fuentes and these racist attacks against her through her interview with Meghan McCain. Yes, daughter of John McCain, that politician who lost against Obama.
So as Usha is talking to Meghan McCain about this racism that Meghan McCain has seen happen to her family and friends on behalf of these far-right people, Usha's not coming out and being like, I denounce that shit, I deal with that a lot, this guy Nick Fuentes is a piece of shit, whatever. She can't do that. Okay?
Meghan dives into her father's smear campaign against him when his opponents used their family's adoption of this Sikh child from Bangladesh. This was in the 2000s when McCain ran against his primary opponent, Bush. Elliot takes this as a discussion about racism, but Meghan switches her question from past scrutiny over race to embracing race today.
I don't need to go into it, people can Google it. And it's been so wonderful for me to see going from this time in America where having a South Asian member of your family was something that was controversial and dark, to now having a second lady who's the first South Asian second lady of the United States. Do you take the responsibility and the role?
So her question wasn't about how Usha felt in the presence of racism, but how she feels about representing South Asian in the U.S. as second lady. Elliot also uses this interview on top of what J.D. Vance spoke about wishing his wife to convert to his Catholic faith as a means of showing that they are not on the same page.
Do you celebrate like
this is actually
Diwali
good too.
or Holi with them? Any of like the traditions?
We haven't. We're actually hoping to have a Holi party, so we're looking forward to that next year.
It's a beautiful tradition.
Yeah.
And notice also how different this is from what J.D. Vance has said just recently. I have no intentions of converting. I didn't feel any pressure in the process. Fast forward to November, October 2025, and J.D. Vance is, I hope my wife turns Christian. Obviously, I'm not going to divorce her or anything. Shit's pretty cool otherwise, but like, obviously, as a Christian, I would like my wife to be Christian. Does that sound like they're on the same terms? Does that sound like a situation where he has so much respect for his wife's religious practices?
Hindus believe that there are many paths, which would make it easy for Usha to accept his new faith. I don't see how Elliot runs with the idea that Vance becoming a Catholic is ruining her marriage and motherhood. As Vance mentioned before, it works out for them. I don't see it as disrespect. He simply wants the same for his wife, but he ultimately respects her free will and will love her despite of what faith she holds. It's beautiful. Love can be beautiful.
Hey, we come from India. We come from a place that was under the violent boot of colonization. We have dealt with white supremacy firsthand. We have a history of dealing with white supremacy. People are going to judge you on that behalf, and a lot of people are not going to see you fully as a human being, even though they will look like they are at first. Because when it comes down to it, your Hindu faith will not be respected, and you will be put continuously in a position of being scrutinized unfairly, of being beat up, essentially, by these spaces. And your husband will not protect you from that. your husband will ultimately not stick his neck out for that.
Nick Fuentes is an interesting guy. He believes that men and women should not have interracial marriages because that gets rid of a singular race. That's his belief. Vance does not need to marry someone white to represent white identity. His love life is his business. America has many identities. A lot of countries actually do want their people to be the majority over immigrants. America has its own culture after all. At the same time, America is the nation of immigrants. Many immigrants moved here with the idea of a better life. There were far more immigrants coming voluntarily to America for opportunities, and there were people forcibly brought as slaves. America was built on freedom. That means freedom of speech and freedom of religion. In the past, freedom was accessible only to white people. Now America has learned what it means to have actual freedom, but the battle is still ongoing. My beef with Fuentes is because he is a Christian nationalist. He thinks America was built on Christianity, when that's just not accurate. People moved here in America originally because they were being controlled from how they wanted to practice one's religion. There were also those who came here for economic opportunity. Our founding fathers existed during the Enlightenment period. Time periods are important because they really describe what kind of environment and way of thinking people were like at that time. Like in today's time, there's this war over wokeness and white supremacy, extreme behavior. There are memes, the internet, and AI. Well, going back with the Enlightenment period, these people living in that period were often rational thinkers, empathizing reason and individual liberty. Many of our most influential founding fathers, those who shaped the Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and Bill of Rights, challenged certain religious dogmas, miracles, and the idea of the Bible as a singular, literal guide for all matters. Early presidents and from our Constitution and Declaration didn't use the word God, rather they favored inclusive terms such as our Creator and Providence. This wasn't accidental. They wanted to include different monotheistic faiths and stop sectarian arguments from tearing the new country apart. Their big goal was making sure the government couldn't force a national church on anyone. They wanted true neutrality among different Christian denominations and other faiths, creating a place where people had the freedom to practice their belief without government interference. And that was their whole point of free religion. A majority of people, including the majority of our founders, were Christian. However, what ultimately built America was an intellectual leadership. By establishing America as a Christian nation, we are going backwards towards the reason people back then left, quote, the Kingdom of England, to separate our nation from one absolute religion. It's why the Treaty of Tripoli was signed by our second president, John Adams, which states that the government of the United States of America is not in any sense founded on the Christian religion, as according to Article 11. Many young people recognize the Pledge of Allegiance, but too young to know the history behind it, the history of one nation under God. The allegiance was written in 1892, though the phrase under God wasn't included until the 50s, when that was used to counter communism during the Cold War. It was propaganda against the Soviets. We've totally forgotten our roots. One last thing, Fuentes says he is America first, but all of Christianity originated from the Jews. It wasn't until Apostle Paul, who, by the way, some consider a false apostle, but I digress, that Christianity became accessible to everyone, to non-Jewish people, known as Gentiles. Before Paul and Jesus' death, it was strictly for Jews. If you're familiar with Fuentes, you know he is hugely vocal about the Jews, saying how Israel controls America, but completely misses the mark about them dominating religion as well. Even though there's a difference in faith between Christians and Judaism, they are fundamentally brother and sister, one and the same in the basis that they emerged from the same source in ancient Israel. Don't tell us you're for America first when you're in the same boat as the Jews. Judaism came first before Christianity. What did America do? Appropriated from the Jews and painted Jesus white, while some try to call the United States a Christian nation. It's not feasible. It's fine to relate to Jesus and follow Christian principles, but we must remember Jesus' origin and remember that America as a whole, while being a nation of Christians, is a multi-faith nation. Anyways, I think that's it. Thanks for watching.